More political unrest in Iran erupted at Friday prayers in Tehran last week. Ayatollah Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani, one of Iran's most powerful clerics, said that many Iranians continue to doubt the legitimacy of last month's presidential election results, and crowds of anti-government demonstrators outside the prayer venue chanted their dissent until being dispersed by tear gas. The turmoil in Iran continues to expose a significant rift between segments of the clerical establishment.
One is the old clerical class that was close to and supported the Ayatollah Khomeini, of which Ali Rafsanjani, the second most powerful Ayatollah in the country, is essentially the leader. The second is the faction around Ahmadinejad, who is not a cleric, and who represents a faction that charges that the old Khomeini clerics have become corrupt and have enriched themselves at the expense of the country. In part, this is a generational dispute between those who were the leaders of the revolution and are now quite old, and those who fought the battles in the streets. In part, it is an ideological dispute over the purity of the revolution, but it is certainly a fundamental battle, and I might add, not one that has a great deal to do with the possibilities of liberal democracy in Iran.
The situation in Iran is also rippling out to other parts of the region, including Israel, where tensions have been building since Ahmadinejad first took office. Concerns about a potential Israeli military strike against Iran and its nuclear facilities have circulated for years, but speculation is mounting again following the recent movements of an Israeli submarine and patrol boats in the Suez Canal and Red Sea.
They've taken a submarine through the Suez Canal and several patrol boats, SAR 5 class patrol boats. They've done it very publicly, but it's hard not to do it publicly in the Suez Canal. It's also a bit of a dangerous maneuver because these ships are in narrow waters, and anyone on either side that was in possession of some sort of rocket could do substantial damage to those ships. So it's not trivial. It's also important to remember that those maneuvers are not being carried out except with the agreement and approval of the United States. It used to be that this would be interpreted by us as psychological warfare against the Iranians, and certainly there is part of it there, but I think this is a little more serious than that. I don't think the Israelis would be risking a substantial part of their fleet simply for psychological warfare purposes. I think part of it is an attempt to influence the political battle in Tehran. The West clearly favors Rafsanjani over Ahmadinejad. The Israelis moving, particularly the submarines, into the Indian Ocean basin puts them in a position to launch cruise missiles at Iran, and in extremis, the possibility of launching nuclear missiles against Iran. The Israelis do want that option. I don't think Washington objects to the Iranians knowing that that option is on the table. I think the stakes are carefully and slowly ratcheting up on both sides in this crisis. And I think in this particular case, Stratfor's view is moving from the notion that there is no possibility of a significant military confrontation between Iran and the United States to the idea that following the events of last month in the streets, Washington may think they have not only an opening in Iran, but support among the Democratic left who have opposed what they see as the repression in Iran to perhaps take some stronger measures than they might have in the past. I think this bears watching. It's not clear where it's going, but I think that complacency at this point is poorly placed.
Given the limitations imposed by geography and resupply needs, a seaborne strike by Israel would require U.S. backing. But the Obama administration's relations with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government have been frosty up to now. They've differed on both the approach to take with Iran and the issue of Jewish settlements in the West Bank. The Prime Minister has ignored Washington's calls to halt construction in the West Bank, and more recently, for plans to build a Jewish neighborhood in East Jerusalem to be scrapped. The policy differences seemed pronounced at an Israeli cabinet meeting earlier this week, where government officials said the U.S. demands were unacceptable.
Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel, and we would continue to build in Jerusalem like in every other city within the state of Israel. It's the policy of all the Israeli government since 1967, since Jerusalem was united, and I think that the demand not to build in Jerusalem is unacceptable.
But is the settlements issue significant enough to scuttle a united U.S.-Israeli front against Iran?
A month ago, the centerpiece of U.S.-Israeli relations was the question of the settlements. Barack Obama was using the settlement question to set up talks with various Palestinian factions. The Israelis were hanging very tough on that. That's not changed. That remains an issue between the United States and Israel, yet it's been demoted. It's no longer the primary issue. Secretary of Defense Robert Gates will be traveling to Israel in August for talks. We will have to assume that they will include serious talks about Iran. So we now have two tracks going on. On one track, there's a confrontation between the United States and Israel over settlements. That does not seem to be affecting the strategic relationship between the two countries.